This month's podcast episodes are proudly sponsored by my own book, Bring Your Product Idea to Life. Have you ever had a great idea for a product? Or does creating a product to sell appeal to you? Where do you begin? How do you come up with a product idea? And if you have an idea, how do you know if it's even viable? In Bring Your Product Idea to Life, I take you through the process of creating your product step by step. From developing your product idea to finding suppliers and launching your product, we cover it all. The book includes advice on how to price your product, where to sell it, and how to find out if anyone will actually buy it. Designed to help you make real progress, Bring Your Product Idea to Life is both practical and motivational. Every chapter includes clear action steps so you know exactly what to do and when. This isn't just a book for reading, this is a book for doing. Bring Your Product Idea to Life is available via Amazon, on my website, and linked in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the Bring Your Product Idea to Life podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're getting started selling products or if you'd like to create your own product to sell. I'm Vicky Weinberg, a product creation coach and Amazon expert. Every week, I share friendly, practical advice as well as inspirational stories from small businesses. Let's get started. Hi, so today on the podcast, I'm speaking to Sara Jones. So Sara helps online retailers grow their business using Google Shopping through one-to-one ads management and by teaching them how to do it themselves in the Online Retail Academy. I was so delighted when Sara reached out to me to ask if she could come and talk to us about Google Shopping. I used to use Google Shopping years ago, and I'll mention this in my interview with Sara, and I found it so confusing. It was really hard to set up. I didn't really know what I was doing, and to be honest with you, I didn't stick with it for long. But today, Sara has completely changed my mind on it. She explains how Google Shopping has improved in the 8 years since I was last using it. She also talks about how to get it set up, how to do well, how to make sure your ads are performing. And she even has some advice on how to optimize your website so that Google Shopping really works for you. So whether Google Shopping is something you're using now, or maybe it's something you're thinking about, or perhaps you've never even thought about it, I think this will be a really useful episode. And if there's interest, I would love to invite Sara to come back to talk about this a bit more in depth as well, because this is very much an introduction. Please, as always, let me know what you think about this episode if you have any follow-up questions, and I would love to be able to get them answered for you. But for now, let's have an introduction to Google Ads, Google Shopping with Sara Jones. Hi, Sara. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Vicky.
Can we start with you please give an introduction to you, your business, and what you do?
So I am Sara Jones and I am a Google Ads manager. So I manage Google Ad accounts for e-commerce businesses, but I also teach online retailers how to do their own Google Shopping in my membership, which is called the Online Retail Academy.
Amazing. Thank you. I guess I'm going to start with, which is probably quite an obvious question, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure I fully know. What is Google Shopping, Sara?
So when you decide you want to buy a new pair of shoes and you hop off to Google and search for some lovely pink sparkly shoes, you'll see across the top of the page, you'll see images and prices and image ads, product ads across the top of the page, sometimes down the right-hand side. Those are Google Shopping ads. They do appear, there's also like a shopping tab, a separate shopping tab on the search results, which you can click into, and then it's all shopping results, shopping ads. But those are essentially shopping ads, and they can appear in places like YouTube as well. So yeah, I love them.
And they're the ads that you see that sometimes feel like they're following you around. So maybe you Google something and then you might click on pair of shoes as an example, yeah. And then you go to YouTube and then you'll see the same like little ad in the right. It's usually the right of the screen, I think, on YouTube. Is it that kind of ad that you might see in multiple places?
So sometimes that can be remarketing. So sometimes the ads that kind of follow you around lots of other sites like news sites and blogs and all that kind of stuff, those are remarketing ads. So that's if you've already come to somebody's website, clicked on a product, and if you have the setup done for shopping ads, you have products, it will automatically show people the products that they were looking at. So that's remarketing. So I guess it's kind of the follow-on from Google Shopping, if you like. And then the product ads that you see on YouTube, those are set up separately again when you're running YouTube ads, you can also add products in there as well. But when people talk about Google Shopping, they're mainly talking about those main results on the top of the Google results. When you're
amazing. Thank you so much for clarifying that. That's really good to know. But for anyone, and we won't go into that much detail today, maybe you have to come back and talk to us about retargeting. Yeah. So I guess today we'll focus just on Google Shopping. But if people were interested in having those ads that pop up everywhere, that's retargeting, and that is part of Google Ads.
Yes.
Amazing. We may well cover that on another episode, Sara. That sounds like something to speak about. But for today,
whole different ball game.
Let's just talk about Google Shopping for today and keep it nice and simple.
Yep.
So let's start with, why might we consider using Google Shopping? What are the advantages and benefits of it?
So what Google Shopping does is, as I've hinted at when I said, if you are looking for a pair of shoes, you go, first place most people will go, or when they're shopping for anything, is to Google and actually start searching for it. So the big advantage of Google Shopping is that you are putting your product in front of somebody when they're actually looking for it. And the analogy I like to use is like, it's like I'm going shopping and I'm walking down the high street and I've got a megaphone and I'm going, I'm looking for a pink sundress. And then the people in the shop can literally run out and wave their pink sundress at me. I've got one over here. I mean, that's kind of how I think about it. And so that's the biggest advantage over, say, something like Facebook ads, where you're kind of putting your products in front of people as they're just scrolling the feed and not necessarily thinking about buying a pink sundress or a pair of shoes. The big advantage of Google is there's that much higher intent, because they are looking for your products. And if you've got it all set up right, your products will show to the people when they're looking. So that's the big advantage. And as to sort of why people would want to run Google Shopping, really is when you get to the point where you're making sales on your website, you've proved that people want to buy your product, and then you're sitting there going, I just need to get more people to my website because not enough people know about me. And that is at the point where you're thinking, right, okay, we need to get more traffic. And as you no doubt know, you do have, at some point you have to start paying to get people and eyeballs to your website. So that is when kind of Google Shopping comes in, and other paid ads obviously as well, but I'm talking about Google Shopping here. So
of course, thank you for explaining that. And I mean, I can only talk from a consumer point of view, but I actually find Google Ads really useful as a consumer, because as in the example you've given, if I'm looking for a pink sundress, let's use the same example, I love the fact that I can type that into Google and I get all these results come up, because it didn't feel like that long ago that if you were looking for a specific product, you would have to go to a specific website and you might search their catalogue of whatever products they have, and they might not have it. And then you would go to another website and you would search there. So as a consumer, I do think that it's really useful, actually, because it's just great that if you're looking to buy something, because I specialize, as you may know, Sara, in selling on Amazon. And I always say that Amazon ads are great because people are there to buy. And now I feel like possibly because of Google Shopping, I do think more people are using Google to buy as well.
Yeah.
But did you see that as compared to maybe, I don't know how many years ago, but I certainly didn't consider Google my first choice for shopping.
Yeah, because I mean, it was that, you're searching, and then you just can't be bothered to scroll up and up and up on just plain text listings, because you're having to read and obviously all the organic results and stuff. It's not conducive to. It just gets really tiring having to scroll and read ads and read organic listings, whereas the shopping, just as you say, makes it so easy to literally, like, you'd have a whole row and you can scroll as well. So there's more than just kind of, I think there's usually 8 across the top, but you can keep scrolling to the right. You can immediately look and say, oh, I like that one. And it shows you the price as well. So if you're in the market for a £50 dress, and that one that you're seeing is a £200 dress, you're like, well, you're not going to click on it, are you? Because that's out of my price range. And so, yes, it does make it easier to just really kind of narrow your choices, if you like, because you're just seeing the ones that are relevant to you, and it's a visual thing. So it's quicker, much, much quicker, I think, to go shopping for stuff. And I'm very impatient when I go shopping online for stuff. I like to just see exactly that's it. And I just click on it and away I go.
Me
so yeah,
too.
you're right.
And I hadn't thought about, we'll talk about targeting in a moment, and I hadn't thought about it until you just said it, that I guess the advantage of how Google Shopping's laid out, the advantage for sellers as well is people could immediately see a photo and a price. And as you say, if it's completely out of your price range, you're not going to click on it, because I assume Google Shopping is pay-per-click. So you're paying every time someone clicks.
Yeah.
And I suppose that having that information right there does reduce the amount of clicks from people who may not ever be intending to buy, maybe because it's out of their price range, or they were looking for a different colour or whatever.
That's right. And of course it works both ways, don't forget, because there will be certain people who have a certain price that they expect to pay for something. And if they see a 50 quid or a 20 quid sundress, they'll be like, not interested. I want my two. So it works both ways. You're giving people so much more information than you can in a boring old text ad. And it's instantaneous that they see it. Picture, price. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Click. And away they go. Then, of course, it's down to your website to do the job of converting them. That's just something that we have to kind of say at this point. It's not all, Google Shopping won't do the whole job. Its job is to get those people to your website who are interested in your products. A whole different conversation again. Then it's your website's job to actually convert them and get them to buy. But yeah, that's why I love Google Shopping so much.
Oh, absolutely. And to follow up on your last point, that makes complete sense. And I think anyone who's running any type of ads, if you're getting a high number of clicks, but your number of sales is comparatively low, I think that would lend to thinking, okay, there's something missing from the actual product page, because I'm getting people here, which is great, but they're not buying. And that would lead me to think, okay, there's something that I'm not telling people, or there's something that could be improved upon.
Yes, or you're not getting the right people to the website. So there are some kind of nuances with that as well, as with all paid traffic. But yes, yeah, that's absolutely right. It's the website needs to obviously convert as well. So,
well, let's in a moment we will talk a little bit more about how we sort of get people there and how we target. I actually have used Google Shopping myself. I think it was about 8 years ago. I'm straining then, trying to think when it was. I think it was about 8 years ago. It was a very long time ago. And I remember then it took me such a long time to figure the thing out, because it was just really complicated. So I'd love to know, has it improved? Is it easier to use now?
Yes, they are making it easier, which is good in some ways and not so much in others. But it is a lot easier than it was. I think I first did it about a bit longer than 8 years ago. And then it was like you had to build a spreadsheet and upload it manually, and it was horrendous.
Yeah.
Nowadays, yes, there are more steps to setting this up than just a normal what people consider as Google Ads, which is like put some keywords in, write some ads, and away you go. There are more steps to work through with Google Shopping. But it is easier now because, Shopify there's an app for Shopify, there's an app for WooCommerce in order that will build the file, the product feed that you need to create and submit to Google. And that is all, done behind the scenes. It's all done through API and things like that. So from that side of things, it's a lot easier than it used to be. It still can be overwhelming, though, for a lot of people, because I've just got to, an ad account. I need a merchant center account. I need a product feed. I need I need to, there are these things, I've got errors and I've got warnings. What do I do? So, but what I'm trying to say is it's a lot easier than it was. But, some people just can find it overwhelming. But if you work through it step by step, then it's definitely something that everybody can do. 100%. Don't feel that, don't believe people when they say, oh, it's all too complicated and you need to pay somebody to do it, because you don't.
That's really reassuring to hear. And what are the things that you feel that what are the things that we need? Maybe if you can just briefly, but I don't know how many steps are involved, but if you can just very briefly talk us through the steps and what you need, and we can keep it really high level, just so everyone's got a bit of an overview, if that's okay.
Okay, well, I'll explain how I normally explain about how it works, because then that basically tells you what you need.
Thank you.
So your shopping ads are run, not surprisingly, inside your Google Ads account. So you need a Google Ad account. The difference with shopping ads and normal Google ads is you also need a Google Merchant Center account, and that's a separate account, which is effectively, if you can think about it as a data warehouse for your product information. So that's Google Merchant Center. They talk to each other. You also need a product feed. Now, anybody who's run maybe Facebook catalog, shopping ads, what are they called? Shopping plus ads, whatever they are in Facebook. You'll be familiar with having to set up a product catalog in Facebook. Same thing in Google. You have to create this, what we call a product feed. That sits in Google Merchant Center, and that kind of Google then looks at all your product information, says, yeah, that's okay, or oh, no, we've got a problem with that. Go and fix it. And once Google is happy that it likes all the information that you've submitted for your products, it will then push that information through to your Google ad account, and that is where you run your shopping campaign. So the product feed obviously is pulled from your website. Like I said, Shopify has there are multiple apps, but there's a free app run by Google in Shopify. There are plugins for WooCommerce, BigCommerce, like whatever you're on, there'll be some kind of plugin or app that will generate that file that is submitted to Google's Merchant Center account. That's the bit that usually confuses people, but once you realize and understand how it works, then it kind of makes it a bit more straightforward. Does that make sense? It's quite hard to explain without like visuals, but hopefully that's made sense.
That does make sense. Thank you. I think that's just really helpful. I think just knowing that there's the merchant center and there's somewhere you need to pull your product data to, like the catalog. Yeah. I think that is just really helpful, because it's really, I think it is a really hard thing to explain, I know. So thank you for that. I think just having that overview will be really reassuring, because I think sometimes when you're thinking about trying something new, so maybe people thinking, okay, I'd like to try Google Shopping, often what can stop people is just that thing of, I don't know anything about this. I don't know how it works, and I don't want to spend hours watching YouTube or
that's right. And of course, you can do it all in Shopify, and Shopify will try and get you to, run your campaigns in Shopify. And then the problem with that is you really don't know what's going on. And I think for a lot of people, it's that little niggle of thinking, I don't know what's happening. And I'm spending my money, but I don't know what's happening, and I don't know if it's working. That's the bit I think that puts a lot of people off. So, So if you could just kind of take the time to understand those elements, then it just gives you a bit of reassurance, I think, to understand what's happening. And then it's easier or you feel more confident putting your money into it if you know what's happening and what's going on and whether it's working or not. So
that makes sense. And maybe we can talk in a moment about how we know if it's working or not, actually, because that would be really useful to cover. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit, if it's okay, about targeting. So how does targeting work on Google Shopping?
So when I talked about Google Merchant Center, all the product information you submit to Google Merchant Center, that product information is what Google uses to actually target your ads. So we don't say in a shopping campaign, please show me for these keywords, please show me for pink sundress and blue sandals. What we do is when we're submitting our product information to Google, it's that product information that determines when we show up. So this is the kind of the big step that I think a lot of people can miss and not understand the importance of optimizing. I mean, it'll be the same for Amazon. It's like optimizing an Amazon listing. You have to understand how people are going to search for certain products, and you have to make sure that that information is contained in your product feed. So, for example, if I sell artisan leather satchels, okay, or dresses, let's stick with pink sundresses, shall we? And I have a pink sundress that's called the Aurora, and my website is called, on the website it says the Aurora dress. Well, that doesn't really tell Google that it's a pink sundress. So when we submit our information to Google, we have to make sure we include, this is a pink sundress in 100% cotton, pink sundress, blah, blah, blah. However somebody would search for it. And then that's how Google knows when somebody searches for a pink sundress, right, this product, the title of the product in our feed says, it's a pink sundress. Lovely. we'll show that product. Does that make sense? So that's how
That makes
that's
a lot of
kind of how it works.
sense.
Yeah, there's
And I
lots
think
of other parts of the feed that sort of influence that as well, but mainly your product title and your description.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And coming back to what we were saying earlier about your website, obviously having to sell your products, I think that this ties together really nicely, because I think by having titles and descriptions that describe your products really well, using language that someone would be searching for, that I think that will help hopefully with sales, and also help if you choose to do Google Shopping, because all the information is there. Because as you say, customers might search, if we use sticking with the sundress example, people might search by colour, or they might be looking for a dress that's made from organic fabrics, for example. Or they might be searching by the length. They want a maxi length sundress, or whatever it is. And I think that sort of thinking through all of that and having that in your description works for both conversions and Google Shopping.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because it will help your organic rankings as well.
Yeah, of course.
Because anything anybody's searching for, and it's exactly the same as it is on Amazon. You have to have all that information in there. Otherwise, the machine is not going to know that that's relevant for what somebody is searching. So, yeah, but it's something I think it's a step a lot of people don't necessarily, they don't miss completely, but they maybe don't go into the depth that they could do to get the most out of the shopping ads.
That makes sense. So I think knowing this now is brilliant. I think you've saved a lot of people a lot of time just by knowing this up front, because I'm sure that this is one of those things where people often go back and sort of revise their data so that it works. That's brilliant. And how do we know if our targeting and our ads in general are working? Are there tools where you can see the progress of your ads? Can you tell how many sales you're getting via ads, via organic sales? How does that work? So
yes, the inside your Google ad account, there is something called conversion tracking. And so basically what that is, it's a little snippet of code that sits on your website that tells the ad account if somebody's actually purchased or added to cart or started the payment, started the checkout process. And so you 100% have to have conversion tracking set up. Like I said, if you're using Shopify and you have the channel app, the Google app, it's all done for you. That's all done. So the conversion tracking, basically inside your Google ad account, when you're running your ads, you can see I've spent £100. I've had 4 conversions, i.e. purchases, and those conversions have been worth £400. So I've spent 100, I've generated £400 in revenue. Happy days. You can also see all the usual metrics that you would see in an ad account. You can see how many impressions you've had, so that's how many times you've actually shown an ad to somebody. Your click-through rate, so that's how many percentage of people have actually clicked on your ad. There's loads of stuff which I won't go into all of that now, but you can see all of that inside your ad account, which just helps you understand what's happening. You can see whether you need to give it more budget. You can see whether you're showing up high on the page or further up in the ads, or whether you're showing up further down, and that's all vital. I mean, you have to, as you well know, you have to know that. Otherwise, you're just throwing good money after bad if you don't actually know whether it's working. So that's where the conversion tracking comes in. You don't see any data for sort of organic traffic or anything in your Google ad account. You see that in obviously your GA4 account. But the conversion tracking shows you everything you need to know about what you're spending, what you're generating in revenue from the ads, and which products, in fact, are generating the revenue, even down to that point. So,
that's really useful. Yeah. And I'm thinking as well that with the conversion tracking, that also coming back to what you mentioned earlier about retargeting ads, for example, and I'm guessing also maybe I'm assuming that if we went into this, we won't today, but going into it in more detail, you can think about targeting ads at people who got to various stages in the process, but for some reason didn't buy. So people who maybe added to cart and then went away, or spent a while on your page and didn't buy. So I guess it's key to have that conversion tracking set up.
Right. That's exactly it. Yes. So, and again, I think a lot more people are probably more familiar with Facebook ads. It's the same way you can build an audience in Facebook ads. You can build an audience in Google ads and say, I want this audience to be made up of people who visited my website in the last 30 days. And I want this audience to be made up of people who added to their cart in the last 30 days. So you can do all this. It can get quite nuanced for most people. You don't need to get too detailed with all of that. It's good enough to say, I want the people who visited, the people who purchased, because obviously if they've just bought from you, you don't want to be wasting money showing an ad to them if they've already purchased. And then you can kind of work from there and build your audiences 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 365 days, and then show people ads who were there last year. If they came to your summer sale last year, maybe they'll come back this year. There's lots that you can go into, but as you say, I mean, that's a kind of a different conversation, really. But it's all part and parcel. You have to kind of do everything together, don't you, to get things to get the best results, I think.
Absolutely. And it sounds as well that there's enough to be thinking about for anyone who's listening and thinks, oh, I haven't tried Google Shopping, I'll give it a go. It sounds like there's enough to be getting on with getting the ads running and working for you.
Yes.
And the other areas seem a bit more like advanced, maybe something you might do once you're achieving a good return on your shopping ads, then that might be something that you might consider. But it sounds like the first thing is just to get everything set up and running well.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
So I don't like to dwell too much on negatives, but I think this might be just useful for people to hear. What's the biggest sort of waste of ad budget that you see? Because obviously we all have a certain amount of money that we think, okay, we can spend this on our ads. I don't know if I want to say waste, but what do you see where you think, oh, actually, you could have maybe done that differently and have made better use of your ad budget? Let's put it like that.
So I think the biggest place where people could potentially waste money is something called negative keywords in Google Shopping. So if I can look and see what terms are triggering my ads and what sort of search phrases people are putting into Google and then clicking on my ads. So if I sell, now this is an example of one of my members, she sells dog toys. Everything she sells is dogs. It's dog apparel, dog toys, everything. And she was getting Google, because, it's a machine and sometimes it can be a bit stupid. She was seeing search queries that were saying cat toys and cat beds, and she didn't sell any of that stuff. And surprisingly, she was still getting clicks for it, because I guess maybe a cat bed looks quite like a dog bed. I don't know. So the way we can use negative keywords is to say, right, Google, I don't want you to show me if that query contains the word cat or free or cheap or, I don't know, secondhand or something like that. So I think that's a big one that can potentially cost you a lot of money and result in traffic that isn't going to convert, because we do have to be realistic. Some people do click on ads when, like, we've searched for cat toy and I don't sell cat toys. Why are you clicking on my ad? Because they do. So negative keywords is a big one, and understanding how they work and understanding where you need to look to see what searches people are making to show your ads. That's probably the big one. And I think another big one is actually following Google's recommendations. I'm using air quotes, recommendations, and blindly following what Google tells them to do. That can be a big problem, because Google is usually only interested in you spending more money. It's not generally interested in you actually making more profit for your business. So it will say, oh, change this and we'll get you 50 more conversions at a cost of another however many hundreds of pounds. And at the end of the day, that's not profitable for you. So that's another big mistake I think I see people making, is just, oh, Google says I have to do this, and they do it, and without understanding what they're doing. So those would be my two biggest things, I think.
Thank you. And that's really interesting, because they're actually the same things, or very similar things, that I see with Amazon ads as well. So negative keywords is, I think often people don't know where to look to see, okay, what someone actually typed into the search bar and how much have I spent and what have I made from that particular query.
Yeah.
And then, yes, Amazon does exactly the same, where it will say, oh, increase your budget by this, or use these keywords. And I don't even know where a lot of this information comes from, because I always look, often clients will forward me a recommendation and say, oh, they say we should do this. And I want to say 99% of the time, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's completely not what we want to do.
No.
I'm not sure who generates these, but
it's the machine, isn't it? It's given a computer algorithm, and then it goes away and it thinks that this is the one I love, because a client of mine sells graffiti spray paint, and a machine doesn't understand the difference between art spray, which is a can of spray paint, and spray art, which is a picture on your wall. But to them, it's spray art spray, same thing. No, it's not. So yeah.
Oh, that's really funny. And I can see there'll be so many examples of things like that. And that's why I guess it's good to be making sure that you're looking at what's going on. And I mean, I think this applies to any ad you're running. You just need to be on top of it and see where your money's going.
Is it? No.
No. And I don't know whether you see that, but that's one of the biggest things I see with ads, is people setting and forgetting. And then that's like a really easy way to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
And how do you help businesses with Google Shopping, Sara? What can you do to help? If anyone's listening and thinking, this all sounds great, but actually, I just don't want to do it myself.
So I manage Google Ads for e-commerce businesses. Generally, those are kind of bigger budget accounts, because otherwise it's obviously not worth paying somebody to manage your accounts if you're only spending £500 a month. So generally, if people are already spending about maybe £2,000 to £3,000 a month in ads and just haven't got time to deal with it and to kind of watch it and optimize it, then that's where I can help. Or likewise, if you're new to advertising, but you do actually have budget to put in it, then I can help with that as well. And for those retailers who, and I would advise this actually to start, even if you do have the budget, I would advise that you learn how to do it, because it's important that you understand what's happening before you actually hand it over to somebody else, because then you know what questions to ask when you're looking at your account. And so I think you need to be well informed, even if you're paying somebody else. In fact, even more so if you're paying somebody else to do it. But I also, for the people who do want to learn and do it themselves, I have a membership called the Online Retail Academy, and then people can join that and learn. There's a whole course in there on Google Shopping, and they can work through that and get my help and support to learn how to do it themselves. And everybody can learn how to do it themselves. Just want to stress that. Even if you think you're a complete just technophobe, I haven't failed yet to get somebody up and running with Google Shopping. So,
oh, that's really, really reassuring. Thank you, Sara. And I'll link through to your website and everything you offer in the show notes for this episode.
Thank you.
And so my very final question is, what would your number one piece of advice be regarding Google Shopping?
I think I've already touched on it, is do not allow Google to update things in your account. So Google will make recommendations and say, oh, you need to up your budget, you need to tweak this target, you need to change this setting or whatever. But unless you switch it off, they will do that automatically. You kind of have to go in and tell it not to. So that would be my biggest thing, would be to say you need to turn off this auto apply, they call it. Auto apply recommendations need to be turned off. Otherwise, especially if you are not in your account regularly, you can go back into your account after a month or two and you're looking at it and going, what on earth is going on? You're like, what's happened? Because Google has just applied something that it thinks is going to be good. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work out well for you. It just gets you to spend more money. So that would be my biggest piece of advice.
That's so useful. Thank you. And I think everyone now that's using Google Shopping is going to check the auto apply isn't switched on. Yes. That's really useful. Thank you so much. And thank you for everything you shared with us, Sara.
That's quite all right. It's been my pleasure. It's been lovely talking to you, Vicky.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. Do remember that you can get the full back catalogue and lots of free resources on my website, vickyweinberg.com. Please do remember to rate and review this episode if you've enjoyed it, and also share it with a friend who you think might find it useful. Thank you again, and see you next week. If you've been inspired to start a podcast in 2024, I really recommend my podcast host, Captivate. Captivate were my top pick when I started podcasting 4 years ago because of how easy it was for a complete novice like me to get started. I've stuck with them for the last 4 years because Captivate is still really simple to use. They keep adding great new features like the ability to share ads like these, and they've just been really reliable. So when you're ready to start your own podcast, you can use the link in the show notes and get a free 7-day trial with Captivate.